My father hit me in front of our whole extended family when I declined to move to the basement so my unemployed brother and his pregnant partner could take my room. They had no idea that I had been covering the mortgage and all the bills for years. 3 days later, they discovered what happens when the money dries up. The constant hum of my computer was the only noise that made sense anymore. It was a clean, steady rhythm, the sound of logic and order, of ones and zeros creating worlds within a glowing screen. In my childhood bedroom, now a remote office, I was a creator, a problem solver. At 22, I was a senior software developer, the kind of success story my parents liked to mention casually to their friends. But outside this door, the code got messy, and the logic fell apart. Outside this door, I was just Ethan, the dependable younger son, the human ATM, the silent support holding up a house that was quietly falling apart. The door creaked open, and the smell of pot roast mixed with anxiety drifted in. It was my mother, Sharon, carrying a plate with a slice of apple pie. Her smile was warm and practiced, the kind she wore when she was about to ask for something. "You work so hard, sweetie," she said, placing the plate on the edge of my desk, dangerously close to a pile of technical manuals. "I don't know how you can stare at that screen all day." "It's how the sausage gets made, Mom," I replied, offering a weary smile back. I had been debugging a critical issue for 6 hours, and my mind felt scrambled. She brushed my hair back, a gesture from my childhood that now felt more like a prelude. "We're so proud of you. You know that, right?" "I know, Mom." She let her hand linger on my shoulder. "Listen, honey, I know it's a tough time, but I was just looking over the grocery receipts, and everything is just so much more expensive this month. I'm short about $200 for the big shopping this weekend." I didn't look at her. My gaze remained on the screen, my fingers poised over the keyboard. I knew for sure that she had just done a big grocery run 3 days ago. I had seen the bags. I also knew my father, Mark, had been talking about getting a new set of golf clubs. I didn't say any of that. I just nodded, pulled my phone from its stand, and opened my banking app. "No problem," I murmured, my thumb tapping the screen. "I'll send it over." "Oh, you're a lifesaver," she sighed, relief flooding her voice. She leaned in and kissed my temple. "It's just what family does. We support each other." She picked up the empty coffee mug from my desk. "I'll get you a fresh cup." As she left, her signature phrase lingered in the air. It was the justification for everything. It was why half the mortgage payment for this house, a house I wasn't even listed on, was set to autopay from my account every month. It was why the electricity bill, the high-speed internet bill that was essential for my career, and the water bill were all in my name, paid in full by me. It was why I drained a significant portion of my savings last winter to repair the leaky roof after a storm, listening to my dad complain about contractors being thieves while I quietly signed the check. It was why I co-signed for my mom's car, and when the payments got tight, I just took them over completely. I leaned back, the springs of my chair creaking in protest. I justified it all with a simple, dangerous thought. It keeps the peace. My dad was proud, a man who couldn't stand the thought of being seen as a failure. My mom was fragile, always worried about appearances. My contributions allowed them to maintain the illusion of a comfortable, stable middle-class life. It was my secret gift to them, a gift they never acknowledged, and I never mentioned. The front door slammed, followed by the heavy sound of my brother's boots on the hardwood floor. A moment later, my door swung open without a knock. It was Ryan, my older brother, 25 years old and exuding the unearned confidence of someone who had never truly faced consequences. He leaned against the door frame, a smirk on his lips. "Still saving the world with computer magic?" "Just paying the bills, Ryan," I said, my tone duller than I intended. "Tough day," he sighed, running a hand through his perfectly tousled hair. "Had a great interview with that logistics company. Nailed it. But the manager was a total jerk. Had it out for me from the start." It was the same story as last month, just with a different company name. He was a master of near misses, almost successes. Forever the victim of a world that just didn't appreciate his potential. He looked me up and down. "Hey man, let me borrow $50. I'm taking Melissa out tonight. Got to celebrate her news." Melissa was his girlfriend of 3 months. The news was that she was pregnant. Celebrate? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Or panic, he scowled. Hey, be cool. It's a good thing. He stepped into the room, his voice lowering. Look, I'll pay you back when I get on my feet. That was the oldest line in his book, a promise so worn and faded it was transparent. But I saw the flicker of desperation in his eyes, the fear beneath the bravado. He was my brother, so I did what I always did. I pulled my worn leather wallet from my back pocket, took out 2 20s and a 10, and handed them over. Avoiding conflict was worth $50. Later that night, I was on a video call with Liam, my best friend since kindergarten. He was the only one who knew the full extent of my financial arrangement with my family. His face, pixelated on my second monitor, wore a mask of disbelief. They're making you pay for the celebration of the baby that's going to worsen their financial situation? Ethan, are you hearing yourself? You're not a son. You're a subsidiary. You're the R&D department and the entire revenue stream for a failing family business. It's not like that, I argued, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I'm helping them out. They're in a tough spot. They've been in a tough spot since you got your first signing bonus, Liam shot back, his voice rising. They see your paycheck as a family resource. Your dad gets new clubs, your mom gets her car, Ryan gets date night money, and you get to live in the same room you had when you were 15. It's a raw deal, man. When are you going to wake up and see it? I had no answer. I just stared at my own reflection in the dark screen, a pale, tired face looking back at me. The wake-up call came a week later. My parents and Ryan were bubbling with excitement over the wedding plans and the baby. The whole house buzzed with frantic energy. During dinner, my father cleared his throat, a sound that always signaled a proclamation. He beamed at Ryan, then at me. You know, with the baby coming and Ryan and Melissa starting their new life together, we're all going to have to make some adjustments. Big changes are coming. He clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder. It's an exciting time, a time for family to really stick together. The word adjustments landed in the pit of my stomach like a stone. I looked at the smiling faces around the table. My father's proud bluster, my mother's tearful joy, my brother's smug satisfaction, and for the first time, I didn't feel like part of the family. I felt like a resource about to be tapped. The family talk happened 2 days later. They sat me down in the living room on the floral sofa that had absorbed decades of unspoken tensions. My father took his usual armchair, the throne from which he issued decrees. My mother perched on the edge of the ottoman, wringing her hands. It felt less like a conversation and more like a sentencing. Ethan, my father began, his voice heavy with seriousness, your mother and I have been thinking a lot about the future, about this family. He gestured broadly, as if to encompass the very idea of kinship. Ryan and Melissa need a proper start, a real bedroom to build their nest and welcome our first grandchild. I stayed silent, my heart beginning to race. I knew where this was going. He continued, leaning forward with a conspiratorial smile. We have a wonderful solution. It's a way for you to make a real, meaningful contribution. We're going to move you down to the basement room. It's spacious and will give the newlyweds the privacy and space they need in your old room. He said it all with such finality, as if he were announcing I'd won an award. He wasn't asking. He was telling me a decision that had already been made. The basement, I finally said, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. Dad, it's not finished. It's a concrete box. Don't be dramatic, he waved dismissively. We'll throw down a rug, get you a nice lamp. It'll be cozy, a real bachelor pad. My mother chimed in, her voice soft and pleading. Think of it as your contribution to your new niece or nephew, sweetie. It's a sacrifice, yes, but a beautiful one for family. A sacrifice. They were asking me to move my entire life. My workspace, my sanctuary, the one place in this house that was truly mine, into a damp subterranean storage area, and they were calling it a beautiful sacrifice. Later, I went down to see it for myself. I pulled the old metal chain, and a single bare bulb cast long, distorted shadows across the room. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and cold earth. A large, spidery water stain crept across the far wall, a ghostly map of last winter's flood. I could see the faint outlines of where my dad's old workout bench used to be, where my childhood bicycle had rusted. I ran a hand along the rough concrete wall. It was cold and slightly damp. A dead cricket lay curled on the floor near the ancient, creaking furnace. This wasn't a bachelor pad. It was a tomb, and they wanted to put me in it. The next day, I tried to reason with them again. I approached them in the kitchen while my mom was making coffee. "Look," I started, trying to keep my voice calm and rational. "I understand you want to help Ryan. I want to help him too, but I can't work in the basement. My job requires a stable, secure, dry environment for thousands of dollars of computer equipment. I have multiple monitors, servers. I need the dedicated electrical circuits and the hardwired Ethernet connection in my room. The Wi-Fi doesn't even reach the basement." My father, reading the sports page at the table, didn't even look up. "You'll figure it out. You're the smart one." "This isn't about being smart, Dad. It's about logistics. My job, the job that pays for the high-speed internet you want me to move away from, depends on this setup." "Oh, Ethan, don't make this so difficult," my mother sighed, turning from the counter. Her face was a mask of exhausted disappointment. "You're making this all about you. Just think of the baby. Your brother needs this. Your brother needs this." The 4 words that had governed my entire life. Ryan needed a new bike, so mine got handed down. Ryan needed tutoring, so my allowance was cut to pay for it. Ryan needed, and Ethan provided. Only this time, what he needed was my dignity. That evening, I overheard Ryan and Melissa talking in the hallway. I was heading to the kitchen for a glass of water and froze when I heard their hushed voices. "I don't know, Mel," Ryan was saying, his voice unusually hesitant. "It feels kind of wrong. This is his room, you know. He works in there." "Babe, be realistic." Melissa's voice was sharp and practical. "We need the space. We're having a baby. What are we supposed to do, live in the basement? He's a single guy. He can manage. He's smart. He'll figure it out. Don't be soft about this. We need to think about our family now." He was quiet for a moment. Yeah, you're right." Hearing it from her so starkly and unapologetically solidified something in me. I wasn't family to her. I was an obstacle, a resource to be utilized. And my brother, the person who should have been my ally, was too weak to stand up for me, too easily swayed by the path of least resistance. The next day, my phone buzzed. It was my Aunt Carol, my dad's younger sister. She was the black sheep of the family, the one who had moved out of state and valued honesty over appearances. "I heard the news," she said, her voice dry. "Your father called to tell me about Ryan's baby and the wonderful new living arrangements." I just sighed. "Yeah, Ethan," she said, her tone softening. "I'm just going to say this once. You have always been a good boy, a good son, a good brother. But sometimes being too good lets people forget your worth. They start to see your kindness not as a gift, but as an expectation. Don't let them erase you." Her words hit me like a depth charge, sending ripples through years of conditioned compliance. Don't let them erase you. It was exactly what they were trying to do. Erase my needs, my space, my contributions until all that was left was my function. That evening, the email invitation arrived for the annual Miller family reunion and barbecue. My dad cornered me by the stairs. "Hey, champ," he said, patting my back a little too hard. "At the reunion, I'm going to share the happy news with everyone about you helping out your brother. It'll be great. Show the whole family how we stick together." That was it. The point of no return. He was going to turn my humiliation into a public performance of his own magnanimity. He was going to use me as a prop in his play of the benevolent patriarch. A cold, hard resolve settled in my chest. It wasn't hot and angry, but chillingly clear. I went to my room and closed the door. I wouldn't argue with him again in private. I wouldn't plead my case. If he wanted to make it public, then my answer would be public too. I sat down at my desk, the hum of the computer a comforting presence. I opened my online banking portal. Methodically, I went back month by month, year by year. I took a screenshot of every mortgage payment transfer labeled Miller Mortgage. I took a screenshot of every utility payment to the city's power and water department. I found the email invoice for the $8,000 roof repair. I found the digital records for the car payments. I saved each one to a secure folder on my phone, not out of spite, but for my own sanity. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that my contributions were real. Proof that I had the right to say no. I was no longer just reacting. I was preparing. He wanted to make a public announcement. Fine, I'd have a public response ready. The day of the reunion dawned bright and oppressively cheerful. Our backyard, usually a quiet patch of green, was transformed into a stage for a perfect family play. The air was thick with the scent of charcoal and freshly cut grass. Uncles I saw once a year laughed too loudly while flipping burgers, their beer bottles sweating in the afternoon sun. Aunts cooed over Melissa's small baby bump, offering unsolicited advice. Kids, sticky with watermelon juice, shrieked and chased each other around the lawn. It was a perfect portrait of American family bliss, and I felt like a ghost haunting the frame. I moved through the crowd, a can of Coke cold in my hand, offering tight smiles and non-committal answers. I could feel my father's eyes on me from across the yard. He was in his element, holding court by the big new grill he had bought last month, a purchase I suspected was funded by the money I'd given my mom for property taxes. I found a spot near the old oak tree, nursing my drink and watching the performance. Ryan was playing the part of the expectant father beautifully, one hand resting protectively on Melissa's shoulder, accepting congratulations with a look of solemn pride. My mother fluttered between groups, a hummingbird of social grace, ensuring everyone's plate was full and their glass topped off. Then my father clinked a knife against his beer bottle. The sound cut through the cheerful din. "Hey everyone, can I have your attention for a minute?" Conversations trickled to a stop, heads turned. This was his moment. He put his arm around my mother and pulled her close. "As you all know, we have some wonderful news in the Miller family. My boy Ryan and his lovely Melissa are going to be parents." A smattering of applause and whoops went through the yard. He let it die down, his grin widening. And in times like these, a family shows its true strength. It shows how we pull together, how we support our own. He scanned the crowd until his eyes locked with mine. He gestured towards me with his bottle. And I have never been prouder of my other son, Ethan, for helping his brother and Melissa get the best possible start. Ethan has graciously and with a full heart offered to give them his bedroom, and he'll be making a new space for himself in the basement. He looked at me like a king expecting a bow from a loyal subject. That's the kind of man he is. That's the kind of family we are. Let's hear it for Ethan. A few people started to clap, looks of admiration on their faces. Ryan was beaming. My mother was dabbing her eyes. A strange calm washed over me. The background noise of the party faded into a dull roar. It felt like I was watching a movie of my own life. I took a slow breath. "Actually, Dad," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear and steady, and it carried across the suddenly silent yard. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." The clapping faltered and stopped. Every eye was on me now. My father's smile froze on his face. "I won't be giving up my room," I finished, my gaze locked on his. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute. The only sound was the sizzle of burgers on the grill. My father's face, which had been beaming with pride, slowly began to darken, color rising from his neck. "What did you just say?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. Ryan took a step forward, his face a mask of disbelief. "Dude, what is your problem? We talked about this." "My problem, Ryan," I said, turning to him, "is that my room is also my office. It's the office where I do the job that pays for." I never got to finish my sentence. My father moved faster than I'd seen him move in years. He closed the distance between us in 3 long strides. Before I could even process it, his arm swung back. The crack of his open palm against my cheek was sharp and ugly, like a branch snapping. The impact sent a shockwave through my jaw, my head whipping to the side. A collective gasp went through the crowd. For a heartbeat, the world was just the stinging heat on my face and a high-pitched ringing in my ears. I tasted the faint coppery tang of blood where my teeth had cut the inside of my cheek. My chest tightened as if someone had wrapped barbed wire around my lungs. I slowly turned my head back to face him. His chest was heaving, his eyes wild with a fury I'd never seen directed at me before. My mother let out a strangled sob. I touched my cheek. It was already starting to swell. I looked at my father, the man who had just struck his son in front of 30 relatives for refusing to be rendered homeless in his own home. "You hit me," I whispered, the words barely audible. Then a little louder, my voice shaking with a cold, clear rage I didn't know I possessed. "You hit me for a room." I took a step back, putting some space between us. I looked past him at my mother's horrified face, at Ryan's shocked and suddenly guilty expression, at the stunned faces of my aunts and uncles. "Let's talk about what I've paid for," I said, my voice strong now. I pulled out my phone. My hands were trembling, but my purpose was firm. I held it up. This family sticks together. This family supports its own. For the last 2 years, I have paid half of the mortgage on this house. Every single month. I swiped the screen. I pay for the electricity that is currently cooking those burgers. I pay for the high-speed internet everyone uses. When the roof was leaking last winter, it wasn't the insurance company that paid the $8,000 bill. It was me. I looked at my mother. "The car you drove here today? I make the payments on that too." I lowered the phone, my voice dropping but losing none of its intensity. "This room isn't a gift you can give away. It's the one thing in this entire house I haven't paid for yet. So don't you ever talk to me about sacrifice." The silence was absolute. My father stood frozen, his face a canvas of red and white. His rage collapsed into stunned disbelief. My mother was openly weeping now, her hand over her mouth. Ryan looked like he was going to be sick. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Aunt Carol was the first to move. She walked straight to my side and put a hand on my arm. "Come on, Ethan," she said softly. "Let's go." I nodded, my eyes never leaving my father's. I let her guide me away. As I walked past my family, past the wreckage of the perfect picture they had tried to paint, I didn't feel triumph. I felt a vast hollow emptiness. "Ethan, wait!" my mother cried, her voice cracking. I didn't stop. I walked through the side gate, got into my car, and shut the door. The sound of it closing was the most definitive sound I had ever heard. I turned the key, and as I pulled away from the curb, I saw my father standing on the lawn, a broken statue in the middle of his ruined party. The first night was spent in a sterile, anonymous hotel room. The air conditioning was too cold. The sheets were too stiff, but it was quiet. For the first time in years, the only needs I had to consider were my own. I didn't answer the frantic barrage of calls and texts. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed, the glow of my laptop illuminating my face, and I began to systematically dismantle the scaffold I had built around my family. It wasn't an act of rage, it was an act of consequence, as calm and logical as debugging a line of code. I logged into my bank account. The automatic mortgage transfer to my father's account was cancelled. I logged into the city utility portal. The electricity, the water, the internet, all services I paid for, were scheduled for disconnection due to non-payment, effective immediately. The account for my mother's car payment? I changed the password and removed the autopay. Each click was a quiet cut, severing a wire of dependency. When I was done, I blocked all their numbers and powered off my phone. I needed silence. 3 days later, I drove back to the house. Liam came with me, a silent, steady presence I was deeply grateful for. I just needed to get my computer, my work equipment, and some clothes. The rest they could keep. The house was unnervingly quiet as we pulled up. No lights were on. Even though it was a gloomy, overcast afternoon, it looked vacant. My keys still worked in the lock. We stepped inside into a dim, heavy silence. The air was stale and cool. The familiar hum of the refrigerator was gone. We found them in the living room, sitting like ghosts in the gray afternoon light. My father was slumped in his armchair, looking 10 years older. My mother sat on the sofa, her face puffy and stained with tears. They both looked up as I entered, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and desperation. "Ethan," my mother whispered, standing up. "Thank God. The power is out. The internet is gone. We got a letter, an urgent notice about the mortgage." "I know," I said calmly. "I stopped paying for them." My father finally stirred. "You did this," he rasped, his voice a broken version of its usual booming authority. "You'd let your own family sit in the dark." "You slapped me in front of them," I replied, my voice devoid of heat. "I think we have different definitions of family." That's when my mother broke. The facade of weary disappointment crumbled, and raw, ugly desperation poured out. "You don't understand," she sobbed, taking a step towards me. "We needed that money. We had to have it." "Needed it for what?" I asked, the old bitterness flaring. "No," she cried. "For the other mortgage, the second one we took out years ago. For the credit cards where we're drowning. Ethan, we have been for years. Your money was the only thing keeping our heads above water." I didn't know what else to do. She collapsed back onto the sofa, her sobs shaking her whole body. The secret was out. This wasn't just about entitlement, it was about a deep, rotting foundation of debt and shame they had hidden from everyone, including me. They hadn't just been using me for luxuries. They had been using me for survival, all while treating me like an inconvenience. Liam put a hand on my shoulder, a silent signal that he was ready to start moving my things. As he headed for the stairs, Ryan appeared in the hallway. He looked terrible, his face pale, his eyes red-rimmed, and the usual confident smirk was gone, replaced by deep, hollow shame. He stopped me before I could follow Liam. He didn't look at my parents. He just looked at me. "Ethan," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry. I waited, saying nothing. When Dad slapped you and you said all that stuff about the bills," he shook his head, struggling for words. "I never knew. I took it all for granted. I thought Dad had it covered. I've been so jealous of you, man. You got this great job. You have your life together, and I have nothing." His eyes filled with tears. "I'm about to be a father, and I'm a failure. I was terrified of not being able to provide for my own kid, so I went along with it. It was easier than admitting I was a loser. I am so sorry." It was the most honest thing I had ever heard him say. In that moment, he wasn't the golden child. He was just a scared man finally facing the truth about himself. My parents were now trying a different tactic, begging me to just turn the power back on so we could talk it through. My father even offered me a deal where I could keep my room if I just resumed the payments. I shook my head. I walked over to the coffee table and placed a business card on it. "This is a non-profit credit counselor," I told them. "They can help you consolidate your debt and make a realistic budget. That's your first step." Then I looked at Ryan. "This is your wake-up call," I said, my voice firm but not unkind. "Your child doesn't need you to be a success. They need you to be a man. Step up. Stop letting them treat you like a child and stop letting them use me as a bank. This is your family to provide for now." I turned and walked away, heading upstairs with Liam to pack the last of my life out of that house. The weeks that followed were a blur of apartment hunting and setting up a new life. I found a small one-bedroom place downtown with big windows and a view of the city. It was mine, every square inch of it. The quiet was profound. It was the sound of peace. Aunt Carol became my anchor. She called every few days, not to gossip but just to check in. She told me my parents had finally called the credit counselor. They had to sell the house, my childhood home, and move into a small rental across town. The facade had finally crumbled, irrevocably. About a month after I moved out, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "It's Ryan. I got a job at a warehouse. This hard work started paying my own phone bill. Thanks for the wake-up call." I stared at the message for a long time. I typed back a simple, "You're welcome. Good luck." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning, a new foundation built on the rubble of the old one. Sometimes, I stand at my new window, looking out at the city lights, and I think about them. I don't feel anger anymore, or even triumph. I mostly feel a quiet sadness for the family I thought I had, and a deep, abiding gratitude for the peace I fought to find. I didn't destroy my family. I just stopped setting myself on fire to keep them warm. They had to learn to find their own light. It's amazing how clearly you can see your own value once you stop paying for others to ignore it. Have you ever had to choose between your family and your own self-respect? What would you have done?